Uten with Cooperative Extension and Simply Local.
And I'm David Goforth. Pam, today we have squash. These are from my local garden here and out in my backyard, and I wanted to show you the kinds I'm growing here. We've got the yellow, we call it straight neck, it's a yellow summer squash. And we've got, this one is a patty pan squash. This specific cultivar is called Sunburst. And then we've got the zucchini squash here. And those are the major ones. Some people will grow a crook neck yellow squash, but they can all be cooked similar ways. They can be stir fried, they can be roasted, they can be sauteed, a number of different ways that we can cook those squash, and even also in salads here early in the year. They're one of the first things to get ripe in the garden. We've got some onions getting ripe too, and so it's excellent time to use local food here. I like to use the smaller ones like this or this or this for the salads, and then if I'm doing some bacon or roasting or frying, I use a little bit larger size like this, and they can get overgrown fairly quickly. This one may still have some uses if you grate it up for breads or cakes or things like that, but they get to this size and there's not much food use, not any food value to that one right there. But again, people ask about particularly this one here, the patty pan, or we used to call it 10 toes. You know, you count the toes on the old ones, particularly looked more like toes than this, and they were white, and so it also had the name of 10 toes. But people ask, how do you use this one? Well, the same way you use any other summer squash. They can be grilled, they can be stir fried, but I particularly wanted for you to show us how to do a casserole, because so many casserole recipes, I don't think they're quite nutritionally. They start off with bacon grease or something like that. So let me share this one with you right there, and let's get into the casserole.
Great. David, before we zoom on though, I want to ask a couple questions that I bet folks at home are probably wondering. I know squash very much is in season now, but when are we going to be able to buy that fresh squash? What's that range of time?
It'll normally start getting ripe around April, and then the majority of it will be April, May, June time frame, because when you get into July, August, and September, it's a little harder to keep the insects off of it. So traditionally people just grew it in the spring of the year, but you will be able to continue to get some on it till about September. So April to September.
And of course we're talking about summer squash. Winter squash we'll be maybe looking at later on this fall. Well, you know, David, the thing about squash, and if you'll hand me one of the yellow squashes, that would be great. Or your regular, not your patty pan, your regular yellow squash. Thank you. I think people always are interested in the nutritional value of things, and I think they're also interested in the calories. You know, this squash is a pretty plain vegetable, and it's been around forever. But the thing that I think a lot of us fail to remember is that a half a cup of sliced squash only has 10 calories. You know, that's pretty remarkable that a healthy vegetable or anything that's healthy could have only 10 calories. It is a source of vitamin A and C. But this little vegetable only has about 10 calories, and I think that's pretty neat.
And the green ones also have the same vitamin A in it. And this, the yellow here, is actually lutein, I think I'm pronouncing that correct, is sort of an antioxidant we like for our eyes. And you can actually buy a supplement, but why do that when you can get it right here?
Well, you know, the fresher the better, and the sooner we can get it from our garden or even the grocery store to our home, the better off we are. Now, this squash, if I had come to the farmer's market today, if I took it home and kept it in a vapor-proof bag or a plastic bag of some type, this could stay in my refrigerator for up to 2 weeks. But if I have just bought the squash, perhaps at the grocery store, you want to bring it home, wash it, and use it within 5 days. The things about vegetables, you want to eat them and use them, and then eat them as soon as you can for the best quality and for the best taste. And I'm so glad you bought a zucchini, David, because this really brings home the point that squash types or varieties are interchangeable. But let's get going. Okay, David, we're going to make a healthy casserole.
Good.
And you know, you've pointed out something really, really true. We've got a number of church cookbooks here in Cabarrus County. We have a number of cookbooks available, and almost all the squash casserole recipes are filled with maybe a can of cream of mushroom soup, a can of chicken soup, cream of chicken soup, maybe a cup of sour cream, maybe even a stick of a stick of margarine, and then stuffing mix. I've seen a lot of recipes like that. And you know what that's called? It's called death of a vegetable. In fact, I even do a class on death of a vegetable. We take a great vegetable and really ruin it by the things we add to it. So today we're going to make a healthy vegetable with your local squash and local zucchini. And of course, when you have your squash or zucchini, you want to slice it, and you want to try to slice it so the slices are about equal. And I was hurrying there and maybe didn't get them as equal as they should have been. So I'm going to add some green zucchini to the squash I've already prepared. And David, we're going to start out with about 6 cups of squash. I like to think in terms of cups. I think most homemakers think in terms of cups. Now, if we tried to add this squash to our casserole right now, it's not going to be successful because, why?
It's a little too tough.
It's very tough. It's very tough. It's a very dense vegetable. That's one reason we cannot recommend home canning squash. It's absolutely too dense to can. So we're going to have to heat it a little bit. Now, you've already mentioned that squash can be sauteed, stir-fried, steamed, baked. You didn't mention, and I'm glad, deep fat fried. We're not even going to think about that. We're thinking healthy today. But to get us going, we're going to steam this in the microwave. And it just requires a little bit of water, maybe 2 tablespoons in the bottom of your casserole dish or your bowl. This healthy squash, David, is only going to contain these things: 1 cup of chopped onions. And again, we can certainly get those onions at the farmer's market. Now, we're ready to kind of stir this up a little bit before we put it in the microwave, and we're going to steam it in the microwave. Now, when you get ready to steam something in the microwave, I think I've gotten that stirred up a little bit, you always want to cover it so the steam helps cook. And this happens to be a microwave safe lid. I'm just delighted to have it here at our extension office. So now we're ready to steam this in the microwave, and we're going to watch it pretty closely. We're going to stir it once or twice, and we want it to be crisp, tender. We don't want it to be soggy or mushy is a great word. So let's go to the microwave, put this in the microwave, and steam it for about 10 to 15 to 12 minutes, kind of depending on your microwave. Now, you can see how much it has shrunk. Oh my gosh, it has really, really shrunk. And that's because squash is so filled with water. Now, we're ready to make that healthy casserole. We've got the squash steamed with a little bit of onions, a cup, and some water. We're going to use a 2-quart casserole dish. And to save time and clean up later on, I have already sprayed this with a cooking spray. Nobody likes to clean up in a casserole. No one likes to clean up. Now, I normally drain these, but I'm going to try to very carefully scoot them in the casserole dish. And you know, David, the nice thing about casserole cookery, you can do everything in the casserole dish. Okay, I should have drained these a little bit better, but I think this will work. Let me get the last of the squash out. There we go. And this is what makes casserole cookery so much fun.
All right.
We can do everything in one bowl. Now, when we talk about casserole cookery, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about the actual casserole bowl or container, which can be glass or wood. And then we're also talking about the technique of casserole cookery. So let's carry on, and we're just going to mix everything up in this casserole dish. So now we will add 1/2 cup of milk. And I want to mention I'm using skim milk, so that's a healthy modification I've made. Then I'm going to add 1 egg that's already been beaten, and I'm going to add 3 teaspoons of margarine, and I'm using light margarine. And then just kind of mixing it right here. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of shredded cheese. And notice that I'm using low-fat cheddar cheese. And I have another cup, 1/2 cup over here that we'll add in just a few minutes on the topping. Now, let's mix this up a little bit in the casserole dish. We could have done this in a bowl, but this is the whole point of casserole cookery, is to make it easy. All right, now we are ready to sprinkle to taste a little bit of salt and pepper. Not a whole lot. I forgot to tell you, David, that the squash have no salt or no fat in them naturally. Now, we can add our topping of 1 cup crushed crackers. Just kind of spread it out here. Okay. Now, if there's one sinful thing about this casserole, guess what it is? The crackers. They are salted crackers, and it's only 1 cup, but that's the one thing that's maybe not as healthy. But we've got to have a little bit of extra flavor in this casserole. Don't you agree?
Oh, I love flavor. But
You love flavor, huh?
The vegetables will do a lot when they taste good.
The vegetables will do a lot, and this is going to be delicious. Now, we're ready to bake this in a 350-degree preheated oven for about 20 minutes. So let's put this in the oven. And it's definitely preheated. And David, I have a casserole ready for you to enjoy. It has baked, it's gotten a little bit cooler now, and the one thing about the casserole, after it is finished baking, you want to let it sit for about 5 minutes so it can kind of firm itself up, because remember, it does have that egg in there. This casserole is going to serve between 6 to 8 people, and it's a great healthy casserole without all of the cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, sour cream, bacon, and other toppings that maybe your mother used, or your grandmother, or my mother used. So I hope you will enjoy this healthy squash casserole.
Now let me ask, you've got squash and onions in there. You could put some other items in there, you think?
Sure, of course you could.
What do you think might work well?
With the squash, well, you could put some other vegetables, and of course in the mixture that just went in the oven, we will have zucchini in there. When you talk about casserole cookery, you're generally talking about perhaps a meat and other things, or vegetables and other things. Rice and beans are common casserole ingredients. Many times, the meat that you might use in the casserole will need to be browned before you add it to the casserole. Think about maybe a hamburger type casserole. Of course, you'd be using lean hamburger meat that you've drained and removed the fat from, but you usually want to bake or brown or some way cook the meat before you put it in the casserole. Oh, you can put anything in a casserole you want to. That's the neat thing about casserole
Now
cooking.
on tomato casseroles, sometimes I've tried them, they come out a little bit more liquid. Is there any techniques, or we just have to compensate for that some way?
Well, I think you just probably have to expect it with tomatoes, to be really honest.
Okay.
Tomatoes are so full of water. And unless you've got a secret recipe that I don't know about, you know, your baked tomatoes are going to be a little bit more watery. Now, a lot of people will literally have the tomato and bake the half of the tomato in the oven, maybe sprinkle cheese or cracker crumbs on it. And most casseroles always have, I shouldn't say most, the majority of casseroles always have something sprinkled on the top. Be it the cracker crumbs, the breadcrumbs, or the cheese.
That certainly looks like a delicious way to eat some squash.
Well, David, it is going to be delicious, and it's taking advantage of our locally grown squash that's going to be with us from May through September at the farmers market.
All right, well, folks, until next time, eat fresh and eat local.
And eat smart.